At the weekend, Antonio Conte picked up his 5th Scudetto, spanning across 3 clubs of Juve, Inter and Napoli. Napoli, by the way, picking up only their 4th Scudetto, but the 2nd in 3 seasons. How has he done it? It's not that 3-4-3, 5-3-2 that he's done over his years with Bari, Inter Milan, Juventus, Chelsea to success, even with the Italian national squad. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to be really stats-based, so if you love your stats, this is the video for you. All right, let's get into it. So here is the final league table of the season, getting a total of only 82 points. There was a lot of draws in there, drawing 10 games and losing 4, and I think that's definitely something that we're going to talk about in terms of the amount of draws that they've had. But this is the big thing. 59 goals scored, only 59. Bearing in mind that Inter Milan scored 20 more. That is a big difference, and 8 difference in terms of goals. So they've only actually conceded 27, which is up there with the best across Europe's top 5 leagues. And when you start looking at some of the attacking numbers, in particular like the goals, 59, as we said, ranking 5th. Also ranking 5th for the number of XG. They've overperformed it slightly. As you could see, nothing too amazing, with the conversion rate been in and around it again. So, shots, it's not as if they've been really wasteful with shots. Look, down there with 157 down. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th in the division for actually having shots on goal. Into the passing, this one didn't surprise me really, but if you take a look, possession-wise, they're up there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th in the division, kind of the bottom of maybe what you class the heavy possession sides, in particular Gasperini. A lot of the 57.6 might have been under Thiago Motta, Bologna, in Vincenzo Italiano, Inzaghi, dominant side. But I would have expected perhaps, the league leaders to be a little bit higher than that. Sorry, the league winners to be a little bit higher with that. Forward direction, they're quite, obviously by the looks of it, quite patient in build-up. PPDA, they're down with a 12.8, which if we compare that with the Premier League, I think it's always good to sort of like for you English guys, you British guys to kind of compare it. They're down with the Aston Villas, the Fulhams and the Southamptons. So, there's teams, they're lower than Brentford, Chelsea, Newcastle, even Manchester United in terms of PPDA. So that's interesting. So not overly aggressive in the press. Starting distance as well, 42.5 metres. So, they're not being overly aggressive. There's actually not much difference between the top sides and the bottom sides. But once again, they're in and around that 7th and 8th. And once again, shot-ending turnovers. So that's winning the ball back high up the pitch, as you'd expect, 6th. But looking like really clinical. There we go, the first one. High turnovers ending with goals, 6th. They're ranked top with Como and Inter, and ranking up there a little bit better in terms of that percentage of high turnovers ending up resulting in a shot on goal. So there's a little bit of clinical to it in terms of how they've been playing this year. Ranking 5th for 10 plus passes sequences, so not overly reliant on holding onto the ball. They are doing it. What I'm finding from these numbers so far, and I'd love you guys to agree, or not agree, let me know down in the comments, is I'm getting that pragmatism vibe, that real controlling kind of team where they're not just doing enough, but winning games sensibly. So maybe getting themselves in front and then making sure, that 59 goals was not a lot. They're not having to chase games. They're not having to come back into games. 27 conceded, so that would be, I'd imagine, a lot of clean sheets. And then once again, their direct speed towards goal is kind of slow. It's not overly aggressive. Once again, I'm getting that thought of it's very controlled. These teams up here, Bologna, Juventus, interesting, Monza, who have not had a great season at all. I think did they get relegated, Monza? Yeah, of course they did. They finished bottom, only on 18 points. So it's interesting that their sequences of their direct attack speed is relatively slow. Once again, sequence time in and around 5th. So that's the, average sort of like possession time on the ball. So a little bit off sort of like the top guys. Total build-ups in and around it. Goals from build-up. So not bad. Kind of, once again, ranking a little bit higher when it comes to goals. So definitely clinical. Direct attacks, mid-table. This is obviously a major part of it, the defending part where, shots on target, not only 98 through the season, 10 less than the next best, Bologna. Total shots faced, 364. Bologna are way ahead on 320. But Bologna's XG per shot is relatively high, actually the highest in the division. So that's maybe they conceded not many chances, but when they do, they are big chances. And I think that's definitely down to the way Vincenzo Italiano has set up at Bologna. So with all that, I think it's important to kind of then look at a couple of player performances. So notable some performances of Scott McTominay has been spoke about. And if we look at Scott McTominay's pizza chart, as you can see, high in for goals, shots, touches in the box. I think this is the first time that he's had more touches in the defense, in his attacking penalty area rather than his own penalty area, which is pretty cool, which is a pretty cool statistic. So kind of showing you how he's been played this year, very much not as a double pivot. You know, it's not that McTominay and Fred double pivot. He's playing literally off Lukaku. Dribbles attempted, up there high, quite low in defensive actions, but I think that's more of a team thing. And as you can see, most of his touches, this is his touch map from the season. As you can see, most of his touches are on this left-hand side. So getting into advanced areas, yes, but it's very much coming off that left-hand side. And then when you compare that with the touch map of Romelu Lukaku, if we drew a line like across the pitch, most of them touches are actually in the right-hand side. So they're kind of working as a little bit of an offset front two at times. As you could see as well, really low for dribbles attempted. Lukaku, you remember when he was on his pomp and he would get the ball and travel? He actually did that superbly well at the weekend, scoring that huge second goal to kind of clinch the title, but really low on dribbles, even chances. He's not getting many chances, but he is proving, he's only scored, I think, 14 in the league this season. So it's not been that absolutely monster performance from Lukaku, but he's done a really functional role up front. And with the introduction of people like Billy Gilmore, Raspadori taking over the mantle left by Kvaratskhelia, it's been an absolutely perfect team performance this season. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to get into the tactic that I've put together in Football Manager. Patreons, as always, the tactic is available for you, link down in the description. If you want to support the channel and get the files as direct downloads, that would be absolutely wonderful. This is now a part-time job, so I appreciate any extra support would be tremendous. Link down in the description. Don't worry though, we'll go through all the team and player instructions, etc., to kind of show you how the tactic has been put together. And a little warning, remember this is a tactical replication. I am not doing this to break the match engine, to score you 1 million goals and get 30,000 XG. That is not the plan. The idea is that I research the team, research the tactic, put it together in FM, and it's there as a blank canvas. Some tactics will work and you don't need to touch it, but this is a bit of a, as I always say, a blueprint for you. This is the Antonio Conte Napoli blueprint. You go and change it however you want. I will give some suggestions at the end of the video as well to maybe make it a little bit more FM friendly. All right, guys, let's get into it. Okay, so this is what I have put together. It is a very offset for kind of 2-3-1. Now, what we're going to do is at the same time, we're going to build a second tactic that will be available also for the Patreons and just have them be a different approach to certain games. I'm conscious of this kind of offset roles. We've got a lot of things going on. I'll explain the reasons for it. We've got not many instructions. The idea is that we are just controlled, not overly, we're allowing that individual quality of a Raspadori, McTominay, Lukaku to kind of get us the goals and being extremely tight at the back. To be fair, the back four, two fullbacks, I absolutely love in Spinazzola and Di Lorenzo. Shane Di Lorenzo is at the point of his latter stages of his career because at 30 years old, 31 now at the end of the season, unlikely to kind of move to a Premier League team, to a Manchester United. Would have been nice at some point, but never mind. This is what we've put together. And these are the results that it's given us so far. So we've had a 5-1 win over Cittadella. Now, a couple of things that we've actually changed is, first of all, we started with a pretty much a very flat 4-2-3-1, with Anguissa being that volante on attack and the Lobotka being the halfback. And now we've not changed those roles, but what we have done is changed it and made it offset, because what we had was Lobotka was, because he was on the left side of the double pivot, he was then coming out and being a half-back in this left-back kind of position. In truth, him or Billy Gilmore, depending on who it is, always split the two centre-halves, and that allows the two full-backs to kind of move on. So that was one change that we've made. The second change was Di Lorenzo, where he does invert at times, but I didn't really want that sort of Manchester City, Zinchenko, classic, Trent towards the back end of Jurgen Klopp's sort of like reign where they were tucking in and really helping him build up. He comes in at times. At times he just sits really narrow. So here we had him on a wing-back defend with the play instructions sit now, and I was hoping that he would come into these areas here pretty much where Politano is, and then that would allow Politano to be a little bit wider. Politano's playing as the right winger, and we've got him as a winger. So I didn't like kind of the early build-up of this, because it would normally be kind of like a 3-2-5 at times, with McTominay and Anguissa being exceptionally high, the two wingers getting nice and high. But it was kind of really offset, and Di Lorenzo is not really helping in build-up. He's kind of standing, he supports Politano, but look, he's absolutely not in the game at all. So we do actually score from it, which is wonderful. So following on from that, I decided that I thought we needed to kind of change the roles once again. Not really wanting, he's normally in the middle here. We do build really nice. And McTominay is deadly as a shadow striker, guys. Absolutely wonderful that we've got his nice little role working. So that was a couple of examples early on where I wasn't necessarily too happy. We started this league season with a 4-1 win over Verona. McTominay driving on this left-hand side where he got most of his touches. That's what we kind of expect the old Lukaku, today's Lukaku to do. And now look what we've got. We've now changed it a little bit. As you can see, we've now got Di Lorenzo coming in inside. I'll just put a little picture up of his heat map during the season, so he does come in extremely narrow. And now we've got the half-back splitting the two centre-halves, and that allows us to get a little bit wider, I think, with the full-back, and he spreads the play wonderfully well. We work it nice little give and goes. Raspadori, huge amount of luck, but all coming from that half-backs, coming into the middle and splitting the play. And there's Lukaku working as that target forward. It's slowly become one of my favourite roles in the game so far on FM this cycle, especially over the last couple of months. I've played a lot with a target man. This is targeting forward on attack, but works superbly well. But once again, now we're not crossing early. We're not overly crossing, and the crossing numbers were not that great. We're just super efficient. And as you can see, 58% of the ball. They had an XG of 0.34. We dominated the game. Deserved win, obviously, to start the season. We then played Bologna, who have this style of being not as much aggressive as what they were under Vincenzo Italiano. But as you can see, we've dominated the game again in terms of chances. Possession numbers, like Antonio Conte can sometimes control games without the ball. Here's Di Lorenzo in this narrow space. And what it is doing is opening a little bit of room for Politano now. If we just bring that back, there's our halfback moving in. Di Lorenzo now coming into midfield. Pushes Anguissa on. We've got Anguissa on attack because he just makes so many good runs into the penalty area. But what I did want with that Anguissa role is kind of him to be, yes, getting forward, but when we lose possession and we're defending in maybe a mid-block or a low block or whatever, he's then getting in alongside that halfback and making a nice structured solid base. Lovely movement from Politano from out to in and finish it for the only goal of the game. But as I said, once again, very much deserved. And then we've just played Parma at the Maradona, 4-1, heavily dominated. They only had 6 shots, one from the penalty spot in the 91st minute as well. Anguissa in that lovely role of the volante. Politano coming from out to in. Lukaku tap in. That's what we want. McTominay now driving on with those dribbles. Remember, he's actually played as a shadow striker at the moment. Raspadori into McTominay. A lovely finish. We've got Raspadori coming in off that left-hand side as well. He generally wants to be kind of that second striker. He doesn't want to hug the touchline as much. It also gives us the option then of having a wing-back in terms of Spinazzola going round him if necessary. Once again, this was a really nice goal. McTominay the scorer. There's our half-back into Politano, who's going to come onto that left foot, into Anguissa, and then into McTominay to finish. Really nice movement from that Volante in that half space. So what we're trying to do is, we have McTominay, remember, his touches were in and around this left-hand side. We've used Lukaku a little bit off to the right at times, but we've used him in the centre. So that could be one change you've done. And then Politano, what he does really well is that he shows feet on support. And because he's left-footed, he often plays these little hooked passes. So when the ball's played in maybe from a midfielder, he hooks it round to try and create an attack into the channel. You know, he would have sucked out a fullback. He drops in and then swivels round, and that allows maybe a Lukaku to run in, or even at times an Anguissa. So that's the offset team that I spoke about. Remember, I said At the first attempt, we had that normal double pivot, which would have looked like that, and that would just have Lobotka kind of dropping into that half-back position, yes, but it was not the middleman, and we wanted it to be the middleman. So that's why we've got to this. We also then wanted that kind of left half channel of McTominay, so that's why we've gone with that. And we've changed the Di Lorenzo role as well. Now, remember, it's not, there is so many sort of like, is it autonomisms? Conte likes to do the same patterns over and over and has his team extremely good at it. Nothing too crazy and amazing in terms of build-up, but build-up nonetheless. So, fairly wide attacking width. I haven't done play out of defence. Quite easily click that one on. Slightly shorter passing, just so we have decent possession numbers without being overly aggressive. Same with the slightly higher tempo. It'll help us being a little bit more controlled and relaxed. These can often change as well during games. You know, you might want to have a go at, when we're talking about tweaks at the end, we'll talk about some of this stuff that we could potentially change to make it a little bit more maybe FM match engine friendly. In transition, no real counter press, but we are going to counter whenever we can and distribute the ball to the centre halves in build-up. Napoli had the lowest the lowest number in the league for goalkeeper launches, which basically means long passes from the goalkeeper. Napoli ranked 20th in the division, so always playing out from the back. And then out of possession, we've just gone with a standard mid-block. That's it. Now into the player roles, we've gone Mere, sweeper keeper on defend. Now, player instructions. This is the Di Lorenzo role, inverted wing-back on support. We want it on support, so he kind of goes into that area, kind of linked with Politano as well at times would be nice. Ramani, we've gone dribble more and stay wider, just so when Lobotka comes in to make that back three, we can then play, and if he's got the space to drive into, we'll let him drive. Oliveira's been playing out on this left-hand side a bit, even though he's more of a left-back, so he absolutely loves that as well. So once again, dribble more and stay wider. And then Spinazzola, we've gone complete wing-back on support just because he loves to be free in terms of at times he comes in like an inverted winger, sometimes he'll go around the sides, sometimes he'll just be a supporting option. Absolutely ideal role for Spinazzola, that complete wing-back on support. Then the half-back, no play instructions. If you wanted to be extra, which is something I often do when I really want that playmaker type into the back three, you could take more risks. That would kind of see him being a little bit more of a deeper creator. The Volante on attack. Now, we've gone with attack because I really wanted him to be aggressive in that little run there. Because we've got that space, Lukaku is very much a target forward poacher, where when it comes to the final third, he hits that on a 6-yard box and stretches the play. Politano's keeping the width on this side, but we remember he wants to come in onto that left foot and slide these underlapping runs. So this is why we've got N'Gisa on attack. However, with N'Gisa, I have noticed he's taken an incredible amount of shots. So I would instruct him to shoot left often, because he was just shooting when it would be more of a real recycling kind of shot where he's in here, there's maybe a wing back going round or Politano going round that right hand side and he decides to shoot, which is really frustrating. And he's not technically amazing. Long shots 11, yes, it's FM, but ideally I just wanted him to keep possession of the ball. Politano on the right side, left-footed, so we're going to cut inside with the ball, but he is going to be a winger, so he holds that width, super important. Raspadori on the other side, no player instructions on him. The bog standing inside forward, so he can kind of make that darting run. I'm a little bit worried potentially. I haven't seen a real issue in McTominay and Raspadori kind of making the same runs. They've actually worked real nicely. When someone's coming in and played, then Raspadori's gone in behind, and when Raspadori's got the ball at his feet, McTominay has made that run in behind. So I'm really liking that, even though they're kind of maybe potentially going into the same areas. And then Scott McTominay, dribble more, take more risks, get further forward, move into channel, superb at that functional shadow striker. With Romelu Lukaku, I've gone closed down less because he's not the most... He's still only 31. He's got years left in him. But do you know what I mean? We're trying to save his energy. Remember, his pizza chart, extremely low in terms of sort of like pressing and things like that. So that's why we've got that on. All right, now that is kind of what I would say is the realistic Conte. What you might want to do is, number one, play out a defence to get those possession numbers up. You might want to move. I would probably leave slightly shorter and then maybe move the tempo up a little bit. You could do that, no problem. It wouldn't have that much of an effect on the game. I've just tried to make it as kind of pragmatic and not free-flowing and aggressive in terms of possession numbers and things like that. Like, we have had massive games where I think the previous game against Palm, we had like 70-odd possession because they literally just parked the bus, and there will be times that Napoli have that in games, but generally we're not too bothered. That just gives us, I think, gives us a nice little bit of control. In transition, you can always press that counter press and then raise that line. They will press, they will go. This is kind of a tactic based over the whole seasons when they're playing teams that they're expected to win. Like we could have done it in the Parma game, the last home game that we've just played. We could have done that, no problem. And it wouldn't have that much of an effect on the side. In terms of the player roles, you could do this, which is one that I think they will do at times, which would be having McTominay a little bit deeper, having Ngisa as sort of like that box-to-box midfielder, and then McTominay is that central midfielder on attack. I think that would work really nicely as well. Might give you a little bit of a better base, maybe defensive base. I don't know. I will leave that tactic linked as well, sort of like the 4-3-3 rather than the 4-2-3-1. It does obviously then get that halfback naturally sitting in. And then you'd still expect Ngisa to get into these forward areas here. So by all means, go check that out. I just like the look of this one and how it's put together and kind of the reasons why we've got this offset formation as well. And we want that McTominay goal threat, don't we? He's made a really good start for us as well. 3 goals, 2 assists in his opening 4 games of the season. The Serie A MVP. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow is all about Leverkusen and their new manager, Erik ten Hag.